Welcome to See It and Feel It with Dr. Brett. And I'm Dr. Brett. And today I'm here with David Summers, D1 quarterback. Hey, buddy, good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, man. So when did when did you start playing football? How old were you?
Uh, I never ended up playing flag football at a young age. So I think the first year I ended up playing was third grade was my first year of tackle football.
Third grade was the first year you played?
Yeah, third grade was the first year I played.
What other positions did you play besides quarterback? How'd this evolution go? How'd you wind up being a quarterback?
At a young age, you kind of play everything. They kind of just rotate kids around, but I was mainly playing quarterback. I played some defense, played linebacker and safety, but I think at the end of the day, the quarterback that they chose for like the younger teams was always kind of just whoever had the best arm. And I kind of grew up playing baseball too. I was playing baseball at the time, so I was constantly throwing, and I think that's just kind of how that started.
Awesome. You know what? We've never talked about baseball before. What were you, center fielder? What were you?
Yeah, I played a lot of third base
Third
and
base?
all around the outfield.
All around the outfield as well? How much did you ever get your arm clocked? What was it? Was it 90? Were you
Uh,
able to throw 90?
the only time I ever got clocked was I think eighth grade. We went to some big tournament down in Georgia, and they clocked every pitch. I think I hit like 78, but that was the only time I ever got clocked.
Yeah, but that's eighth grade or whatever. What do you think?
Yeah,
If you had to throw a baseball today, Dave, what do you think you'd be throwing at?
I think if I threw a baseball today, I'd throw my arm out,
You'd be
but
throwing what?
I'd throw my arm out.
That's
But
funny.
I
Um,
think I think I could have hit mid 80s if I was really like working at it.
yeah.
But with football being like a year-round sport, I never
How
got to
far
like.
can
I
you toss a football in the air?
think I hit 65 was my farthest I've ever tried.
65?
Yeah.
I used to throw like 55 in the air. That's not bad, right? For
Oh, that's
somebody,
very good.
yeah,
Yeah, that's very good.
I was only like, 120 pounds or something, like in high school. We were probably opposites in high school. Did you get big quick? How'd that work, the progression?
You talking at a young age
Yeah.
or like ever since college? Yeah, I was always the tallest out of my friends, so I think that kind of played into the quarterback role. But yeah, I was always a taller kid, kind of peaked through middle school, and then everyone kind of started catching up to me because I peaked really quick. But to this day, I'm still, I think, one of the tallest out of all my friends. So I got
To
big
this
pretty
day,
quick.
you're still the what?
Still one of the tallest out of all my friends. So yeah, you could say I got big pretty quick.
Wow, very cool, very cool. And when did you make the transition from baseball to football? Did you do both in high school, or did you just
Yeah. So
transition?
I grew up playing football, baseball, and basketball. Those were my three sports. So they never overlapped much when I was younger, at least, because it was just different seasons. But then once you get to high school, Um, I stopped playing basketball my sophomore year because I had to take visits to colleges in the winter. So that just overlapped. So I never had time to do that. And then baseball, I stopped, I think, the same time because I wanted to just focus on football. And throwing a baseball and throwing a football is totally different and would mess with my arm a little bit. Like I developed bicep tendonitis from baseball.
Oh, you mean from
So
like third base or whatever, the
yeah, it's
bicipital
just
tendonitis?
yeah, and I used to pitch too, so it's just a lot of wear and tear on your arm. So I figured it'd be
Yeah,
best to just
totally.
not play baseball and just focus on football.
So at some point you made that decision. Is that pretty common? A lot of athletes, in somewhere in high school, they decide to focus on one sport.
Yeah, all my buddies played multiple sports, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to play one sport in college, you'll see a lot of guys, especially if it's football, you'll see a lot of guys stop playing other sports just to focus on football.
Yeah, for sure. Football's pretty all consuming. Was it pretty all consuming in high school as well? Or, what was that? What
Um,
was that like?
it wasn't all consuming really around the game. It's just normal day is school, then practice. But when the season's over, the season's kind of over until sometime in the summer. But when you're trying to play in college, you have to go take visits, go to camps and stuff like that. So it becomes all consuming in that sense. When you're kind of out of season, you have to do everything to get ready for college.
Yeah, totally. How did you do? Tell us about that college process, what the recruiting is like, and when you had to make decisions by, because we're always trying to help people here on this podcast, right? And there's, so having your perspective could be invaluable potentially.
Yeah, I thought the recruiting process was really fun. It started, I want to say it really picked up after or like midway through my junior year, because I was starting to have a really good year. Started to get interest from a few schools. My coach reached out to a few schools, heard back from them. A couple schools came to actually watch our games. And then right after the season happened, a couple schools, I think it was Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Yukon, and Maryland, came down to see me throw like privately.
Hmm.
I had a couple offers before that, like small local schools. And then after I threw for them, I got offered by Buffalo that night, and then Pittsburgh and Maryland a week later. So those were my first three big offers. And then once I got those, it kind of picked up, started receiving interest from bigger schools. But I ultimately loved my visit at Maryland, and I thought it was the best place for me. So I committed pretty early. I committed in May
Mm.
for my senior year because I kind of wanted to get it out the way, just focus on my senior year because recruiting is a lot. It's very stressful at times. So I thought Maryland was the best option for me. I committed there. And then they went through some coaching changes. So they fired everybody on staff, brought a new coach, and the new coach basically told us that it'd be better if we found another school to go to. So I ended up decommitting from there. And
And
then
that was on the recommendation of the new coach.
it was kind of unspoken
Got it.
that it'd be better to look elsewhere. Um, but reached out to a few schools. Syracuse, I had some connections here. Took a visit, I think in January, and then committed right after that.
Wow. And what was the transition like, coming out of high school into college? Did you have to get there a little earlier than everybody else as well because football starts probably in August,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I left high school, I think 2 weeks early to come up here and start working out with the team. And then I went back for my graduation for a weekend and then came right back here. So I was there from May into June, July, August, and then the season started, and then I'm not back till December. So it's a grind. I mean, it's half the year you're working out or getting ready for your season.
Yeah, it's pretty intense at the D1 level. I'm coaching a bunch of D1 athletes, as you know. I mean, it's pretty amazing how all in it is and all consuming it is. And some of the kids that I work with, they have the decision to make, do they want to like play D1 ball or not? And then, for some of them, it's, if they're that good, it's a no-brainer. But if they're sort of on the margin, then they have to decide, well, do they want more freedom in their college experience or not? Right?
Yeah,
Because
I've had a few friends like that. I mean, I've had a couple buddies on the border about either walking on or playing college football. A lot of them, it happens after like a year just of college without football. You realize you kind of miss it. So I've had a bunch of people reach out to me. They're like, should I play football? Like, is it worth it? And I mean, you got to see it from their perspective. I mean, if you don't really love the game, especially football, it's gonna be a long time for you. I mean, because a lot of guys can take a year off and not really think much about it, but coming back and then really realizing how much of a grind it is and how much your life revolves around football is a shocker to a lot of people.
I can see that. What's the transition like in the off season? When you go from all that intensity to like now football's over. What's that like?
So after the season ends, we have about a month break. We go home for the holidays and whatever until all the students come back. We come back with them, so we're not back early in the off season. And then the first 2 months, we'll really just lift 4 days a week because I think the NCAA mandates that you can only do certain things during the off season. So we keep to those requirements. Just lift 4 days a week, weekends off, and then sometime in the middle of March, we start spring ball, which is just 15 practices. over the course of a month. So it's every other day. And it's like 2 hours of practice. You kind of just get back. A bunch of new kids come in, a bunch of the incoming freshmen come in early. And it's kind of a great time to like prove yourself.
So in spring ball, the freshmen that, what I mean, that are going to be there in August, they actually come and join you guys. So the high school seniors.
About half of each recruiting class usually comes early. So they'll enroll early in the university. So then once you're enrolled, you can start practicing. So we usually get half the class that's incoming in the spring and then the other half in the summer.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. So is that 6 months after high school ends for them, or is that early before high school ends? How does that work?
That's that's early before high school ends. So
Wow.
that's halfway through their senior year.
Wow. Is that what you did, or you just came like a couple months later?
I just came as soon as I could. I mean, because I transferred schools, it made it harder for me to get all the credits I need that quick, especially with that. Like, if you want to do that, you want to plan to do that from basically your sophomore year so you can have everything laid out so it's possible. I thought about doing it, but I would have had to like double up on all my classes.
Got it.
It didn't really seem like it was possible.
Yeah, no, that sounds super, super intense. So what are the good parts here and what are the challenging parts? And, what's your wisdom for those that are, following not necessarily in your tracks, but are, committing to a D1 sport in general?
I think the biggest thing I can say is just take your time and be patient, especially with all the recruiting stuff, because the last thing you want to do is get talked into committing to a school that you don't really love. You got to make sure that the school fits you not only for football, but academically. You have a good feel. If you like it close to home, if you want to get away from home, you got to deal with all those factors. But, and then once you get there, like, just still be patient. I mean, everyone comes in and wants to play right away, but usually that's not the outcome. Usually you're going to be pretty low on the depth chart. You just got to work hard every day and try to move up.
Yeah, that's a pretty hard part, right? Because you go from high school where you're a big star, right? And then you transition to college and now you're not, now you got to almost start over again in some respects, right? Thanks for watching See It and Feel It with Dr. Brett. And stay tuned for part 2 of this interview. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend.